محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا ثم ما بعد. Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala he started with the book of Babu Ikram al-Dayf on the chapter or the book of Al-Adab, book of good manners. He said chapter Babu Ikram al-Dayf, honoring the guest. Last time we spoke about the ayat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran in regards to honoring the guest, and Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah he chooses brilliantly the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam with the angels who were on their way to Qawm Lut. So he brought them the ijl, the entire cow, for them to eat, subhanallah, even though there were not that many in numbers. But that shows the generosity of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And also the story of Lut, when the people, they came to his home to, kind of like violate these guests that he had with him. He was standing in between his people and his guests, like, these are my guests, I will basically stand against you. Like, honoring the guests doesn't mean just with food and drink. It also means with shelter, with protection, and of course, kind of sometimes sacrificing yourself for the sake of honoring the guest who sought asylum and shelter with you. And here now he brings the first hadith. He brought two hadith, as a matter of fact, in this chapter. قال وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم ضيفه ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليصل رحمه ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. رواه البخاري ومسلم. In this hadith, the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, he gives three statements. The first one, he says, من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر. He who believes in Allah and the last day, قال فليكرم ضيفه, should honor his guest. If you truly believe in Allah and you believe in the hereafter, you should have no mistake. Honoring the guest is one of these high priorities, to show hospitality towards your guest. Now, subhanAllah, again, we have to keep things in perspective as well. Guests back then, different than guests that we have in our time. You guys remember the difference? For them in the desert, the guest is a random stranger traveling in the desert, comes to this point, and he needs a place to stay. Back in these days, not like in our towns, mashallah, we have towns all over the place, and you could stop in a hotel or a motel, whatever, right? You can find a place for yourself. Back in those days, the law of the desert, in order for people to survive, they had to help each other. So if I'm coming through your town or through village, then you're going to have to, take care of me. Because when it's your turn to travel, we will take care of you. And as a result, it became like a desert law among the people of the desert, that you're responsible to honor the guest no matter who they are. And part of their issues with that is that sometimes the stranger or the guest who comes to you in a moment like this is actually probably your enemy. And there are certain, in the Arab folklore, there are sort of poetries and some statements actually of honor and dignity. Like some people, they say, they hosted the one who killed their brother and the one who killed their father, even on the battlefield, in a battle between the tribes. They hosted this man in their own house. They fed him. They took care of him. They honored him to the highest level of hospitality. And they let him go. Because when it comes to honor the guest, it's something very unique. So what the Prophet ﷺ is asking us in this hadith, that with Islam, these code of honors that people had, in the Jahiliyyah, they don't become weaker, they become stronger. As Muslim, when it comes to honoring the guest, now that I'm Muslim, I have a purpose more than just, being mentioned as a generous person. Because when the Arab did what they did it for the honor, for the name. They wanted to be mentioned in poetry, in the culture, all over the Arabian Peninsula, that XYZ is very generous. And in the Arab tradition, we have actually few people who are known for their maximum level of generosity. When we talk about generosity, there's always this name that always comes first. Which name is that, Jama'ah? Hatim al-Ta'i. Hatim al-Ta'i from Tayy, which is northern tribe in Arabian Peninsula. He was one of the most generous people the Arabian Peninsula ever had. He would give everything, sacrifice everything to the guest. There's a story even to tell about his generosity, is that there was a debate between an emir in certain area, like a governor or a vizier, and one of his يعني acquaintances and disciples. And they were debating that Hatim al-Ta'i would never let go of his precious horse. He had a precious horse, like it's everything for him. He would never sacrifice that horse for anybody. So they were betting on it. Eventually, one of them, he says, I will see. And he went to him, pretended to be a traveler, that he was lost, tired, exhausted, and he wanted to kind of rest. So he rested and he stayed with him for 3 days and 3 nights, which is the hospitality for the guests usually. And when it was over, then he came to him and says, listen, I'm here, I would love from you, I would like to purchase your horse. Like, I'll give you whatever you ask for. Just give me the horse. So Hatim al-Ta'i said, I wish you told me earlier. But when you arrived, I didn't have anything else to feed you. So for the past 3 days, I've been actually feeding you the horse. Like that valuable horse for him that he would not let go to sell it to anybody, he was willing to sacrifice that horse for the guests, to feed the guests. Hatim al-Ta'i was before Islam. There is another man from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, his name was Ibn Jud'an. Ibn Jud'an was so generous that he had permanent pots. The fire never turns off underneath these pots. And food is always being cooked day and night during his lifetime. This man, he found a treasure, as a matter of fact. And when he asked what to do with that treasure, the soothsayer told him, or she told him, put it in generosity. Your name will become perpetual. And indeed, his name became perpetual for his generosity. So Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, just to let you know who Ibn Jud'an was, he's the same man who hosted the meeting when the Prophet ﷺ was young. Before he became a prophet, he was a very young man. He said, I attended in the house of Ibn Jud'an the Hilf al-Fadul, the alliance that the Arab they had to support the weak and the poor and whoever would come to Mecca and so on and so on. He said, if I would be invited to the same Hilf, the same alliance today, I will still go for it. I will participate. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So that was in the house of Ibn Jud'an. So Aisha, she told him, قالت يا رسول الله ما نفع ابن جدعان ما عمل. What benefited him, what he has done? He says nothing. In terms of the akhirah. He says in the akhirah, nothing. He did it because he wanted the name. He got it. Like his reward for what he did, he got it. To be mentioned as most generous person. And he is the most generous person among the people. But then she said, of course, but he said to her, in the akhirah, he never said, my Lord is Allah Azza wa Jal. So that wouldn't benefit him much. Obviously, with the generosity of Hatim al-Ta'i and Ibn Jud'an, there is no doubt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was even much more generous. So the point is, what we're saying here, whoever believes in Allah and the final day, they should honor the guests. No matter who these guests are. Just honor them. Well, I hate this guy. Who cares? Honor the guest. Ya akhi, nothing satisfies these people. That's not your problem. That's their problem. For you, just do your duty towards the guest and honor the guest. The second statement the Prophet ﷺ says, quickly inshallah, قال ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليصل رحمه. If you truly believe in Allah and the final day, you should always maintain the tie of kinship. Always, no matter what. And then he said, ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. And whoever believes in Allah on the final day should say good or remain silent. Just keep in your mind, by the way, this hadith, according to the series, hadith, these instructions were from the very early instructions the Prophet ﷺ had given the Sahaba when they first moved to Medina. Why? Because when they moved to Medina, the Prophet ﷺ was working on establishing what? The society, the community, the sense of brotherhood and sisterhood in the community. And obviously, in order to establish that, what was required for them? Interconnection, interrelationship, basically. So that's why the Prophet says, maintain the tie of kinship, say good or remain silent. If you believe in Allah on the final day, do this, don't do that. Like strengthen their iman through social practice and social manners and akhlaq. And that is something we should always think about. And I hope, inshallah ta'ala, as we move forward in our community and move to the new masjid, inshallah azza wa jal, to keep that in our mind. In order to strengthen the sense of community, we have to work on this. Generosity, visiting each other more frequently, making these visits not formal visits, ya jama'ah. The formal visit, I don't want to say it doesn't count. It counts, But what is beautiful is when you just come over just because I would love to spend some time with you. Instead, come over, we have to have a buffet, and there's a protocol for that, and I cannot come empty-handed, and I have to buy a $100 gift for that, and all that stuff. Yes, Jama'ah, just drop all these formalities. Let's have just a beautiful sense of brotherhood and sisterhood for like informal invitation. That's what makes it different in the community. And also maintain those ties of kinship, so that make sure to those who receive your best of generosity, those who are the closest to you first before anybody else. And then think of others. And then if you're going to say anything about anybody, remember, you say good, otherwise, just stay quiet. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who listen to the speech and follow the best of it, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Any question, Jama'ah? Yes?
So is it okay to stop by somebody's house without notifying them?
So is it okay to stop by someone's house without notifying them? Yes, you can do that. And they have absolutely all the right to say no. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قال وَإِنْ قِيلَ لَكُمْ ارْجِعُوا فَارْجِعُوا هُوَ أَزْكَى لَكُمْ. And if you were told to return, go back, then it's better for you. That's more purifying to the heart. Why? Because if you stop at someone's house, unexpectedly, maybe they're busy, maybe the house is messy. Well, I don't know what's going on in their lives. It has no right for you to force yourself on them. Now, alhamdulillah, we have the communication skills, or the gadgets. Then contact them before you make that move. So don't try this with me, okay? طيب سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.